You ever have one of those moments where the world stays completely still, but something inside you drops, just falls out from under your feet like a trapdoor you didn't know was there? For me, it was a Thursday night. Nothing special. I was at the dining table with my laptop open, doing what I always do every other week. Reconciling our shared expenses, making sure the auto payments hadn't duplicated, catching weird charges. Sophie was in the kitchen reheating some Thai leftovers, singing along under her breath to some old Florence and the Machine song, like it was just another ordinary evening in our quiet, very married life. And then I saw it. A line item on our joint card. Harborview Suites, Bayside location. Date: last Friday. Total: $427.68. I stared at it for a while, trying to piece it together. Last Friday. That was the night Sophie said she had to stay late at the office, finalizing a Q3 report, she claimed. Said it ran longer than expected, so she just crashed on the little pull-out couch in her department's break room. I'd even offered to bring her dinner, and she told me not to, said she had Uber Eats and didn't want to break her flow. But here was the charge. A luxury hotel. Not the airport location either. The Bayfront one. The one known for couples packages, infinity pools, and those robes you always forget to return. I scrolled down. Beneath the room charge. Breakfast, Harborview Bistro, 2 guests. Spa services, tranquil escape package. I sat there, not breathing. Hey babe, I called out casually, not looking up. You said you were at the office Friday night, right? She replied, not missing a beat, scraping curry into a bowl. Like, the whole night? Yeah. Why? I clicked the lid of the laptop shut. Nothing. Just wondering if that old sofa in your break room is actually sleepable. She laughed. Barely. I had a crick in my neck all weekend. She walked over with our food, set the bowl in front of me, then sat across from me like she always did. Same smile. Same dimples I'd memorized. She reached for her chopsticks, unfazed. Not a flicker of suspicion. I didn't say anything else that night, but something in me had shifted. It wasn't just the charge. It was the way she didn't blink when I asked. The story flowed out too easily, too seamless, like she already knew the questions, like she'd already practiced the answers. I wanted to believe it could be explained. I wanted to believe maybe it was a team offsite she forgot to tell me about. Maybe the hotel charged the wrong card. Maybe... I couldn't finish that sentence. The next morning, another thread came loose. Sophie was running late for work, as usual. She asked me to help her grab a few things from her trunk. Some boxes she needed for a presentation. She handed me the keys while juggling a travel mug and her laptop bag. Watch the cologne in there, she called over her shoulder. I think the cap came loose. Cologne? I popped the trunk. Inside was a mess. Papers, tote bags, a yoga mat she hadn't used in months. Tucked off to the side was a black matte gift bag. High-end, heavy cardstock. Inside it, I found a sealed box of Tom Ford oud wood. Expensive. Easily a couple $100. I turned it over in my hand. Next to it, partially wedged under a jacket, was a white towel with a faded logo. Harborview Spa. Still had a light scent of eucalyptus on it. Tied around it was a plastic neon green wristband, the kind they give you for pool access or spa entry. I pulled it out and stared at it for a second too long. Sophie came up behind me. Oh my God, she said, laughing. That thing. I meant to throw that out. I held up the bag. This yours? She snorted. Technically no. It was from the client event last week. One of the guys forgot it in the swag bags. Guess they accidentally gave us extras. I meant to toss it. You want it? She plucked it from my hands and gave me a quick peck on the cheek. The spa wristband? I asked, turning it between my fingers. Also from the event? Yeah, she said quickly. They had this whole relax and recharge theme. Gave everyone wristbands and a 5-minute chair massage. Marketing fluff. Her voice was light, a little too chipper for a Friday morning. You didn't mention a hotel spa event, I said, trying to sound neutral. She shrugged, hoisting a box out of the trunk. I didn't think it mattered. It was just a client thing. Sponsors, vendors, speeches, awkward wine, the usual. Didn't even stay the night, just dipped after dinner. Honestly, you didn't miss much. She smiled, full and easy. Not defensive. Not guarded. But I noticed her eyes didn't hold mine for long. We carried the rest of the boxes in silence. She chatted about some new intern, some product launch, the coffee machine finally getting fixed. I nodded at the right times, answered when prompted. But my mind was racing. I thought back to last Friday. I texted her around 9:30, asking how it was going. She'd replied with still grinding. Might sleep here. Love you. No punctuation. Her usual tone. But now, knowing what I knew, the message felt like it had layers I missed. And that's when it hit me. She had been too casual. Too calm. Not a single slip. Not even a stammer when I held up a hotel spa wristband and a box of men's cologne from the same night she was supposedly stuck in the office. Either she was incredibly lucky with timing, or she had prepared for this. And if she had prepared, then that meant I didn't want to finish that sentence either. The rest of the day was a blur. At work, I stared at spreadsheets I didn't read. During lunch, I Googled Harborview Suite spa packages and found their Tranquil Escape deal. Massage for two, champagne, rose petals, the works. A client event. Huh? Later, I checked her calendar, the one we both shared. Friday just said, client offsite, possible late. No mention of location. No time. Strange. Once you catch someone in a lie, no matter how small or elegant, your brain refuses to forget it. It's like a tiny crack forming in the windshield, just out of your line of sight, spreading slowly every time you hit a bump. I didn't even want to believe anything was wrong. That's the worst part. I wanted to be wrong. But wanting doesn't change the truth. I kept going back to that wristband. The gift bag. Her explanation had sounded smooth. Too smooth. Now that I replayed it in my head. I tried not to obsess, but it's like my memory had turned into a spreadsheet, highlighting discrepancies, looping through details I'd previously ignored. And the thing is, the signs had been there. They just didn't hit me all at once. They built up slowly over months. Subtle things that, on their own, didn't look like much. She started waking up early for workouts around February. That part wasn't unusual. Sophie had gone through health kicks before. But this time, she never brought gym shoes. No yoga mat, no duffel bag. Just her purse and her phone. Some days, I'd hear the garage open before sunrise, and I wouldn't see her again until after lunch. No sweat, no gym smell. And her hair would be curled like she'd just come back from a date. Not a spin class. At the time, I told myself maybe she was going through something. She'd been under pressure at work. New management, tighter deadlines, some leadership retreat nonsense. I wanted to be supportive, not paranoid. But then her phone started buzzing nonstop. Dozens of notifications, and always face down. Always silent. And she never checked it when I was in the room. She'd casually flip it over or swipe away the screen when I got close. One night, out of habit, I reached for it to check the time. Hers was on the nightstand, closer than mine. She practically dove across the bed to grab it, laughing it off. Just checking a Slack thing, she said. Didn't want you to see how dorky my background is. I smiled, played along. But something in her face stuck with me. That tight smile, the strain in her voice. It was fear. She was scared I'd seen something I wasn't supposed to. And then the laptop. She started keeping it close like a purse. Always logged out. Always closed. She took it with her to the bathroom. I'm not kidding. She'd go to take a bath and bring the damn thing with her like someone might break in and read her emails while she was rinsing shampoo out of her hair. I tested it once on a quiet Sunday morning. She was in the shower. Her laptop was sitting on the couch. I tried to open it just to look at the homepage, not even snoop. But it had a new password. One she hadn't told me. I didn't mention it. I didn't want to seem controlling. But the wall between us was building, brick by silent brick. Then there were her Friday meetings. Fridays used to be our night. Even if we didn't go out, we'd do takeout or play board games or binge some dumb series we'd never admit to watching. Then, one day, she told me she had to stay late. Some last-minute planning thing. Said they were realigning priorities before a product launch. Okay, fine. I believed her, but it became every Friday. She'd get dressed up, full makeup, dressier than she ever did for work. She'd leave without her laptop, sometimes even without her company badge. I'd check her work calendar. Don't ask me why, maybe I was looking for reassurance. But there were no meetings, nothing marked, just a blank day. Once, I smelled cologne on her coat. I don't wear cologne. I haven't in years. She always said she preferred the natural me scent. But this wasn't my scent. It was richer, deeper, woodsy, and expensive. I asked her about it. She blinked, then laughed. "Oh, you're imagining things," she said, waving it off. "That must have been the Uber driver. I swear, he had one of those trees hanging on every vent." I nodded like that made sense. I told myself it made sense. But then she started changing clothes in her car. It happened one night in early spring. I'd gotten home early and was working in the garage when I saw her pull in. She didn't see me. She sat in the car for maybe 10 minutes before getting out. When she finally stepped into the garage, she had on sweats and her hair was tied back. "Long day," she said, stretching. "I'm dead." Later, when I took out the trash, I found a blouse and heels shoved behind the passenger seat. A makeup bag, too. She had changed in the car. I didn't say anything that night, but I started noticing the pattern. Lingerie packages arrived that she never opened. Some still had the plastic seal. I'm not exaggerating. There was a silk teddy from some boutique in Milan still in the shipping envelope, tossed into the back of her closet. I asked her once, half joking, if she was ordering gifts for someone else. She grinned. "Don't worry, babe. You'll see those soon enough." I never did. There were bar receipts from places I'd never heard of. Across the street from her office, tucked into her coat pockets. Uber rides that ended blocks away from our house. Once, she texted me a selfie from the airport lounge before her red-eye to Chicago. But her car was in the driveway the whole weekend. I started writing it all down. Not because I wanted to catch her, but because I wanted to believe I was crazy. That this was some weird, tangled misunderstanding I'd laugh about one day. That maybe I was stressed, tired, losing it. But it didn't go away. Piece by piece, her second life started bleeding into mine. The illusion cracked, and the more I looked, the more I realized how much I had missed. How long I had ignored the signs. How much she had relied on that. They say the worst betrayal is the one that makes you doubt your own eyes. And I doubted mine every single day, until I couldn't anymore. It happened on a Wednesday night. Random, quiet, unassuming. She had gone to bed early, claimed she had a 6:30 a.m. virtual sprint review with the team, left her laptop on the dining table charging. That in itself wasn't rare anymore. She usually took it to the bedroom, sometimes even to the bathroom like it was some fragile, high-security artifact. But tonight, maybe she let her guard down. Maybe she was tired. Or maybe she thought I had finally stopped wondering. She forgot to close the screen. It lit up when I passed by. I wasn't planning to check anything. I swear. I was on my way to the kitchen for water. But the glow caught my eye. Just a soft flicker. And then I saw the cloud sync notification in the top right corner. Files updated from iMessage. Dylan Carter. Zip. I stopped in my tracks. Dylan Carter. That name wasn't new to me. I'd heard it maybe a dozen times. My manager Dylan. Dylan asked me to run point on this. I'd seen his name in company newsletters and once in a group Zoom thumbnail during the lockdown days. Tall guy. Good smile. A little too polished. But I never thought twice about him. Until now. I sat down and tapped the trackpad. The laptop woke instantly, no password prompt. The sync folder was open, sitting right there like a stage lit before a show. It wasn't hidden. Wasn't encrypted. Just a simple folder. Dylan_Carter. Inside, a timeline. A digital trail. A roadmap of betrayal. Photos first, dozens of them. Some were casual. Selfies at work events, crowded backgrounds, coffee cups, exposed brick walls. Innocent enough if you didn't know what to look for. But I did. And they weren't innocent. In one, his hand rested lightly on her lower back while she leaned into him, laughing. In another, she had her legs tucked under her on a hotel couch, his hotel, judging by the watermark on the minibar snacks behind her. A spa wristband identical to the one I found weeks ago was looped around her wrist. Same color. Same design. There was one *T that stopped me cold, breakfast trays for two. Eggs Benedict, fresh fruit, pressed orange juice, and a note propped between two silverware sets. Written in her handwriting, "For my favorite kind of morning." His name was on the note. No mistaking it. The timestamps sealed it. Dated precisely on the days she claimed to be at early workouts. Fridays, especially their supposed launch prep meetings. All of them lined up with our bank account's mysterious charges and her unexplained absences. I pulled out my phone, matched them one by one. Harborview Suites, Bay Street Cafe, Luna Spa, Oliver and Finn Wine Bar. Every lie had a receipt. Every alibi had an itinerary. Then the chats. They weren't just flirty. They were meticulous. Coordinated. Months of planning, bookings, dinners, cover stories. They had code words. Yoga meant hotel. Sprint check-in meant overnight. Final review meant spa day. It was like reading two spies briefing each other before a mission. Except the mission was my marriage. They joked about me. That was the part one wasn't ready for. Screensh *TS of my texts. "Hey, babe, heading home soon." Followed by laughing emojis. One of his replies, "Don't worry, he's clueless. We've got hours." They even planned fake fights to keep me off the scent. There was a whole thread where she rehearsed an argument to pick with me. Something about me forgetting to unload the dishwasher, just so she could leave in a huff and have an excuse to stay out. She sent him a thumbs up after it worked. I scrolled in silence, my chest a block of ice. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't anything. I was numb. I wasn't even sure I was breathing. Then I found the travel logs. Shared documents labeled trip planning, listing cities, flights, dates. Some were official conferences, but most were disguised as client meetups or internal leadership intensives. Same cities, same weekends, 2 rooms at the same hotel, side-by-side itineraries. They traveled together. She had told me she hated business travel, claimed the flights gave her anxiety, the rooms were too quiet. But in these threads, she called it our escape. I checked the metadata on a photo from Chicago, taken the same night she FaceTimed me from her solo suite, claiming she was ordering room service and watching bad TV. In the corner of the photo, barely visible in the mirror, was Dylan's jacket. Same lapel pin I'd seen in his Zoom thumbnail a year ago. I looked up from the screen. The house was quiet. She was upstairs, sleeping peacefully. Maybe dreaming of him, maybe not. I sat there for another 10 minutes, then backed out of the folder and closed the screen. I didn't smash the laptop. I didn't scream or flip the table. I didn't rush up the stairs and drag the truth into the light. I just sat there, still, frozen. Because when you finally have proof, undeniable, inarguable, time-stamped proof, it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like death. Something inside me shut off that night. Not because I couldn't handle the truth, but because I finally saw the full picture. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a weak moment. It was a system, pattern. A second life constructed piece by piece over months, maybe longer. One that required deception, planning, and an enormous amount of energy to maintain. She hadn't slipped. She had chosen. Again and again and again. That's when the anger finally came. Not rage. Not outbursts, just something sharper, colder. A blade slipping between my ribs and staying there. I wasn't going to confront her, not yet. I wasn't ready to hear her voice twist the story again. I knew how good she was, how quickly she could switch gears, cry on cue, pivot the guilt back onto me. I'd seen her use charm like a scalpel. I wouldn't give her the chance. Instead, I opened a new folder, on a clean flash drive, labeled Truth. I copied everything. Photos, messages, itineraries, cross-referenced dates with our shared financial records, added screensh *TS of charges and loyalty program confirmations, downloaded Uber trip histories that matched her supposed late meetings. I exported GPS data from our synced calendar app, Turns out she'd disabled her location sharing months ago, but her past entries still had metadata attached. I organized it all chronologically. No commentary, just the story she didn't think I'd ever find. By 3 a.m., it was done. I ejected the drive and tucked it into the back of my desk drawer, behind some old birthday cards and expired insurance forms. Not because I was planning revenge, but because I needed something solid, something real, something I could hold on to when she smiled at me in the morning like none of this ever happened. When I finally climbed into bed beside her, she stirred slightly, murmured something unintelligible, and rolled toward me. Her arm rested gently across my chest. I stared at the ceiling for the rest of the night. After that night, something in me changed. Not loud, not dramatic, just a shift, like a lever pulled in the dark. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't storm out or slam doors. I did what men are often taught to do. I got quiet, focused, cold. She didn't notice. That was the first real insult. She had no idea I knew. No suspicion. No read on the silence I gave her over breakfast. No flinch when she kissed my cheek with the same mouth she used to whisper to him. She talked about some new project launch, asked if I'd be okay picking up the dry cleaning. I nodded, smiled, said sure. My hands didn't shake anymore. My heart didn't race. I'd already drowned in the truth. Now I was swimming in it, controlled, deliberate, alone. And if she wanted to live two lives, I was going to quietly leave one of them. The first thing I did was open a new bank account. I didn't move everything at once. That would have tipped her off. Instead, I opened it under my middle name, had my payroll rerouted, then left just enough in our joint account to maintain the illusion of normalcy. Mortgage, groceries, subscriptions. Nothing she'd notice missing. Yet, then came the documents. I rented a safe deposit box at a credit union 3 towns over. One she didn't know I used, one we'd never been to together. I drove out on my lunch break, signed the forms, and slid in the manila folder I'd prepared. Passport, birth certificate, copies of our marriage license, car title, and the flash drive. I added a spare key to my car and a burner phone I picked up in cash from a kiosk at a gas station. Felt extreme. But betrayal makes you plan for angles you never thought you'd need. At night, I started copying things. Receipts, travel confirmations, PDF scans of her emails. I didn't know if I'd ever use them, but I wanted a record. A thread of truth I could return to when she inevitably tried to rewrite the story. And she would. People like her always do. I even pulled the full Uber history from our account. Past rides, she said, were just to dinner with the girls that mysteriously ended near Dylan Carter's apartment. A hotel downtown booked at 9:43 p.m. with checkout at 6:12 a.m. the next morning. The driver's note said, couple with luggage. I saved all of it. Then I froze the joint credit card. Not enough to decline a charge and make her suspicious, just a hold on cash advances and external transfers. I told the bank we were evaluating account security. They nodded like they'd heard it before. They probably had. I started packing a bag. Not to leave, not yet. Just in case. A duffel with 3 days' clothes, essentials, documents, charger cables, a printed list of passwords. I hid it behind the furnace in the garage, sealed in a waterproof tote labeled seasonal lights. I began withdrawing from her emotionally, too. Not in anger, in indifference. I didn't argue when she picked a fight over the dishwasher. Didn't correct her when she claimed I'd forgotten to pay a bill I'd paid 2 days early. I just nodded, apologized, played my part. The good, stable husband. The man too dull to suspect a thing. She seemed satisfied by that. Some nights, I watched her from across the dinner table. I studied the way she scrolled through her phone, smiled at private messages she never let me see. She had a little cheating laugh I hadn't noticed before. Low, controlled, almost flirtatious, with her head tilted slightly down like she was hiding it. Her thumb would hover over the screen like she was deciding whether to reply. She had told me once that women just know when something's off. But here she was, blind to the reality I was quietly building under her nose. And then came the lease. A small studio on the far side of the harbor, tucked behind a wine bar and a bait shop. It wasn't much. Bare walls, one window, barely enough space for a table and bed. But it had light. It had peace. It had no trace of her. No trace of us. I signed it in person. Paid the deposit in full. Told the landlord I'd be moving things in slowly, over a couple of weeks. No rush. Just a work housing situation, I said. He didn't ask questions. At home, I moved slowly, carefully. I boxed up sentimental items she never touched anymore. Photos, cards, letters. I left the ones on display where they were. She'd notice if the picture frames disappeared all at once. But I started slipping old notes and keepsakes into a banker's box I kept locked in the trunk of my car. I didn't change my routine, didn't sleep anywhere else. But the version of me she thought she lived with was already gone. I had started detaching long before she would ever realize. And still, she didn't see it. She was too focused on maintaining her illusion, her scripts, her control. She'd tell me about her burnout at work, how she was thinking of switching teams. I knew what that meant now. Dylan was probably getting promoted or moved, and she was trying to orchestrate the next phase of their affair. I listened patiently, nodding when appropriate, taking mental notes. I said less, smiled more, never gave her a reason to suspect. Sometimes I wondered if she wanted me to find out. If maybe she'd grown so confident in her double life that it had become boring. That she needed me to catch her just to feel something again. Or maybe she thought I never would. I don't know. But I do know this. For the first time in our marriage, I was the one in control. I wasn't scrambling for answers. I wasn't chasing apologies or digging for scraps of truth. I was observing, calculating, preparing. There was a kind of power in that. And maybe that sounds cruel. Maybe that makes me cold. But after what I'd seen, after watching her construct a web of lies so carefully, so deliberately, I knew one thing for sure. If I was going to walk away, I was going to do it with clarity, with evidence, with peace, not questions, not chaos, not her version of the story, mine. The invitation arrived in a gold-foiled envelope like it was something special. Inside was a cream-colored cardstock with embossed lettering, Pier and Stone Consulting, Annual Corporate Gala, Waterfront Ballroom Harborview Pavilion, Formal attire required spouses welcome. I almost laughed when I saw the venue. Harborview again. Of course. Sophie was in the kitchen when I brought the envelope in. She glanced at it, her expression unreadable, then smiled and said, "Oh right, that thing. Forgot it was this month. This thing." That's how she said it, like a dentist appointment, not the biggest corporate event of the year. Not the one she'd been planning outfits for in secret weeks ago. I knew she'd already picked out a dress. I'd found the receipt while reviewing our shared spending. $600 from a boutique in Midtown. A dress she'd claimed was an old one from the back of the closet. I knew better now. She didn't explicitly ask me not to come. Instead, she said things like, "You probably won't know anyone there," or, "It's going to be kind of boring, mostly networking and investor speeches." Her voice stayed even warm, but I could tell she was laying the groundwork to go alone. So I did the opposite. "I'll go," I said. She paused mid-stir at the stove, glanced over her shoulder. "Really?" "Yeah," I said casually, like it had just occurred to me. "Could be fun." She hesitated for a beat too long before nodding. "Okay, great." That night, I dug out my suit. Black wool, still pressed from the last time I'd worn it to a wedding 2 years ago, and brought it to the cleaners. I booked a haircut, polished my shoes, and called my friend Jay, who ran a photography studio on the side. "Can you get into the Harborview Pavilion that night?" I asked him. "Yeah, why?" "I need photos. Not of me. Of an event." Jay didn't ask many questions, just said, "Done," and told me he had a contact who worked banquet gigs there all the time. Said they could shoot from inside, no one would notice. The night of the gala, Sophie looked radiant. That's what made it all harder. She wore the boutique dress. Backless, deep berg *NDY. Something elegant and sharp. Her makeup was flawless. Her hair swept into a low twist, just like she used to wear it when we were still in love. She looked like the woman I had once imagined building a life with. And yet, I felt nothing. We arrived at the venue just after 7 o'clock. The place was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows, chandeliers shaped like inverted sails, and a view of the bay that stretched out under the evening lights. Waiters in black uniforms moved through the crowd with silver trays. The music was soft, jazzy, expensive-sounding. The moment we stepped inside, Sophie began to drift. First, she held my hand, just lightly. Then she saw someone across the room, someone I didn't recognize, and excused herself to say a quick hello. She looked back at me once as she walked away, smiled that same soft, camera-ready smile I'd seen in the mirror selfies she used to send Dylan. From then on, she didn't return. Not for 20 minutes. Not for an hour. When she did finally circle back, she introduced me to a few people I didn't know as Nick. Oh, he's my plus one. No title. No context. Not my husband. Just a formality. A tag-along. One man, stocky, grinning, asked me what firm I worked for. When I said I wasn't with the company, his expression shifted like I was interrupting something. That was the moment I knew she'd been preparing for this night without me. And I wasn't even supposed to be here, but I was. I spent most of the evening near the back of the ballroom, watching her work the room. She floated effortlessly from conversation to conversation, laughing, leaning in, touching arms, making jokes I couldn't hear. And always near her, Dylan Carter. He was taller than I remembered, wearing a navy suit with a subtle pinstripe, pocket square neatly folded. His hand touched her lower back more than once. At one point, he leaned in close to whisper something, and her whole face lit up. They didn't touch lips. They didn't hold hands. But they didn't need to. Their body language said it all. They weren't being careful anymore. They didn't have to be. I pulled out my phone and opened the live gallery Jay had sent me. It was already filling up. Dozens of photos from the event, candid, high-res, time-stamped. I tapped through them slowly, each one validating everything I already knew. Sophie and Dylan near the catering table. Sophie laughing while Dylan adjusted her necklace. *T of them exiting the side corridor where I'd once found a receipt for private room reservation, Harborview Lounge. I scrolled until I found one I didn't expect. Sophie looking directly at the camera, not with shock or alarm, but something else. Indifference. Like she didn't care who saw. Like she thought she was untouchable. And maybe she had been until now. At 9:18 p.m. I left the ballroom. I walked 2 blocks to the parking garage, sat in my car, and uploaded the gallery. But not to social media. Not yet. I built a single post, a plain, structured exposé. A timeline. Corporate perks. When the expense account becomes a second life. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. The post included cropped images of hotel bookings, side-by-side receipts, loyalty program history, spa appointments, and trip dates that matched their so-called conferences. I blacked out identifying faces but left enough location tags and data trails to make it obvious. The post went live on a community forum that catered to professionals in our metro area, a place where company reputations mattered and whispers traveled fast. Then I logged out. I didn't even watch it go viral. I didn't care if it got 2 likes or 200. I just wanted it out there, in the open, unstoppable. By the time I returned to the ballroom, Sophie had already noticed something was off. She was near the coat room, phone in hand, brows furrowed, scrolling. Dylan stood stiff beside her, jaw clenched. I walked past them, nodded politely to no one, and said nothing. She saw me. She knew. And I kept walking. I drove home in silence. Didn't turn on music. Didn't check my phone. I left the suit jacket on the passenger seat, pulled into our driveway, and sat there with the engine running. A strange calm settled over me. I hadn't exposed her out of vengeance. I wasn't trying to ruin her life. I just wanted the mask off. I wanted the story to breathe in daylight instead of living in a hidden file folder. If that destroyed her reputation, then it was never real to begin with. And deep down, she knew it. HR launched an investigation. Expense records matched every lie. Dylan was placed on leave. Sophie was suspended. Photos, dates, and bookings went viral in whispers. Her team stopped replying. Friends went quiet. The fantasy unraveled fast. No control, no defense, no escape. I left her favorite book on the vanity. Flash drive tucked inside. No note, just silence. My keys on the counter. I didn't wait for tears or apologies. I walked away without a word, locked the studio door behind me, and finally exhaled.